Holton here. I'm in northern Israel, and Lebanon is right over there, about 6 kilometers, 3 miles. And uh, we're going to do an Ask Me Anything today, so you can ask me whatever you want. I've been a lot of places in the last few weeks, and so we've got plenty to talk about. I started out in Burma. I left on the 16th of February, went over to Burma, had to go in what we call black, which is go in to Burma illegally, because it's not going to happen if I try to get in legally to Burma, right? Spent, I don't know, about 3 weeks over there, and saw a lot of combat, a lot of misery, a lot of heartache, and that sort of thing. And then I came out of Burma and flew to Mumbai to Dubai to Yerevan, Armenia. Spent about 10 days in Armenia, mostly looking at my brand new grandbaby, and she is wonderful. And we also traveled around and nailed down some details for our upcoming tours that we've got going to Armenia in May, June, and September. And then got a little bit of reporting done from out there, and got on a plane and flew yesterday to Athens, Greece, and then Greece to Tel Aviv. I am still carrying my emergency passport. I managed to destroy my passport while I was in Burma, because I had it in the top pocket of my rucksack, and then without thinking, I threw my bug juice in there, and apparently 100% DEET is pretty caustic, and it melted my passport and just took all the ink and everything off of my passport. It was really bad. I mean, you ought to see that thing. It's the lady at the consulate when I got back to Thailand was like, "What did you do to this thing?" So, okay, was that a question that went by? Let's see. Is it true that Bethlehem belongs to the Palestinians? Well, in a manner of speaking, you could say that. Bethlehem is in an A zone, which is a zone that is reserved specifically under the Oslo Accords for the Palestinians. That means that it's illegal for Israelis to go into an A zone without special permission, but tourists can go in there, and I've been in there before. So that you have to make arrangements, and like we had a Israeli tour guide on our bus when I went in there, and he had to get off and wait for us outside the A zone, and we went in without him. So that's kind of awkward, but so I don't know that you'd say it belongs to the Palestinians. It's all part of Israel. You know, the Palestinians are living in Israel, right? I mean, whether or not it's called the West Bank or Gaza, it's still Israel. There's no, West Bank passport. If you want to go visit the West Bank, you've got to come to Israel to do it. So it belongs to Israel, but they let they've agreed that the Palestinians can both police it and administer it. Your very first time to catch a live broadcast. Well, Patty, thank you very much for being here. Patty Davis, I really appreciate you. And let's see, hello from South Dakota. We got people all over the place. Anyway, so I'm in Jish, Jish, in northern Israel. It's a tiny little mountain town with about 3,200 people in it. About 60% of those people are Maronite Christians. And actually, I just left a Maronite church service. They apparently have church every night. It's kind of like a Catholic Mass, except it's in Aramaic. That's the language that Jesus spoke. So these Maronites, they speak Hebrew, Aramaic, and Arabic, because they kind of mostly speak Arabic in this town. And a lot of them speak English as well. So That's not just 4 languages, but 4 different alphabets. Figure that out. These people are amazing. So I went to the church service and sat through part of it. And question, did Russia march to the Israeli border like Stakelbeck said? I didn't see what Stakelbeck said. I've heard rumors that Russia was moving. I thought it was like Wagner, private military contractors down to the border, but not to like invade or something. They're not stupid enough to do that. Wish you could visit my Bubba in Bert. Okay. Are there Russian troops in Syria? Yes, there are many Russian troops in Syria. I've seen them. The last time I was in Syria, we went through a city called Ain Isa, which means the eyes of Jesus. And in Ain Isa, there are basically 4 teams that are vying for control of that area. You have the Syrians, the actual Syrian army, and they are supported by Russia. So the Syrians and the Russians are in one corner. You have the Kurds, supported by the Americans, in another corner. You have the Iranians in their own corner, and you have the Turks supporting the Free Syrian Army, which is the remnants of ISIS, in another corner. So all 4 of those teams are trying to control that area. And the weirdest thing about it was Main Street of Ain Issa was where all the shops were. It's a very small town, so all the shops are just right down Main Street. So if you want to go grocery shopping, you have to go to Main Street. And so all of those enemies, enemy groups, none of those groups like each other, those 4 teams, but we kind of had a truce when you're on Main Street. So if you're shopping, nobody's going to bother you. So we're down there walking down the street on Main Street, and there's Russian troops going by. There's former ISIS fighters going by. There's Kurdish guys. And we're just like, holy cow, this is nuts. But yes, there are many Russian troops in Syria. There have been for many years, and they are ruthlessly bombing and pillaging places across Syria in the name of the Syrian forces. Your missing friend from London been found? Has your yes, she has been found. Always good luck. Thank you. That's very nice. Question. Somebody just wrote question. That's not a question. All right, so let's see. Oh, there's the question. Has your missing, okay, I got it, okay. Interesting. Sorry, but that's crazy. Yeah, it is crazy. And we got out of there fast. Actually, I was worried that even though we were on Main Street and we were supposed to leave each other alone, we were down there buying something, bread or something. And these trucks rolled up and some Syrian soldiers got out and came walking into the store we were in. And I was pretty freaked out by that. And we left right away. I think I left my bread just laying there because, I mean, those guys could easily say, where's your passport? You're obviously here illegally. You don't have a stamp in your passport from the United States. I'm sorry, from the Syrian government, and haul you off to jail. We had come in through the area that's controlled by the Kurds, right between Iraq and Syria, in a place called Feshkabor. And so we didn't really have stamps in our passports for that. They just control that area. It's still Syria. They call it Rojava, but anyway, yeah, it was pretty dicey there. So anyway, more about Jish, where I am. I was just hearing explosions off that direction, which means that most likely the Israeli army is pounding positions deep inside Lebanon right now. If from the sound of it, it was very far away. It could have been 30 miles inside Lebanon, and we could still hear it if bombs were loud enough. It's easy, especially at night, for the sound of explosions to travel 20 plus miles without a doubt. And so, I heard very faint explosions off in the distance. It could have easily been 30 miles from here. Uh, the IDF has been striking inside Lebanon every single night, and they're going deeper and deeper into Lebanon, trying to discourage Hezbollah from opening up an all-out war. But just in case they do, the IDF has been in this area because, okay, so we are about 6 kilometers from the border. The rule has been that if you're Israeli, you're in Israel, and you live 5 kilometers from the border or less, you need to evacuate, and the government will pay for you to stay in a hotel somewhere until this is all over. So for the last 6 months or so, the government has been paying for about 80,000 people from this area to live in hotels in Galilee and all in Tiberias and down at the Dead Sea and all the way down to Eilat. And there's a bunch in Jerusalem as well. But since Jish is 6 kilometers from the border, they don't get paid to leave. The government doesn't give them any assistance if they want to leave. But a lot of people have chosen to leave because this city regularly gets shelled. I mean, it's nothing. Sorry, I'm hearing small arms fire off. It's pretty far away. Um, it's nothing for Hezbollah to shoot a mortar that will make it 6 kilometers inside Israel. And so they they have been mortared here, and rockets and missiles and all sorts of stuff. Just a couple weeks ago, they had 37 missiles come in and strike just outside of town. They were actually aiming for a military site and missed, but it was. There's footage of that up on my website, by the way. Go to chuckholton.com. That'll take you over to locals, and you can see the video that my friend Shadi Khalul shot of that attack. And you can see the smoke rising from the impacts of those bombs. So a lot of people have left. There are no hotels open in this town. There are very few restaurants, probably only about 3 or 4 restaurants that are open in this town. A lot of people have chosen to leave, but they're not getting paid to do so. And so that's a very expensive thing for them. The government, because there are so many people, I mean, hundreds of thousands of people who are still within range of the rockets and missiles and artillery of Hezbollah, to say nothing of the long range rockets that they have that can hit Tel Aviv or even, Sderot. They can hit any place in Israel with some of the rockets they have. So the government has been coming to villages like this one and setting up shelters. Not necessarily, I mean, just about every house has a bomb shelter in it. Some of the older ones don't. And there are public shelters as well, all over the place. There's one right just down in the end of this street. It would be too far to get to if the sirens went off, though, from where I'm standing. But the building that Shadi Khalul, my friend who lives here, talked to one of his friends who's not living here, and they let us use their house. That's where we're staying tonight. And it's pretty substantial concrete. So I probably would not go to a shelter if the rockets started coming. I'd just hunker down next to the wall in our little apartment here. But sorry, I keep listening because you hear these little thump thump thumps, and they're my ear is pretty well attuned to those after being in Burma and getting shot at with artillery and mortars and stuff all the time. So I hear that stuff, and I stop and listen to hear if it's coming this direction. So let's see. I've pretty much canceled the plans for Israel. Oh, I'm not. I mean, totally. When Jesus comes back, I won't need my service. Whoops. Yeah. Oh, Shadi Khalul is a great guy. He's a good friend. Somebody asked, Angie Palmeyer says, any updates on when the IDF will go into Rafah? No. What Benjamin Netanyahu has said is that he has given the green light for the operation, and it'll be up to the commanders when they pull the trigger, when they are ready. Of course, they will probably have to go back to the cabinet of war and get, let them know that they're ready, and then, get the final go ahead. So no, they have not got in, but they're just preparing for it now. Now, what Shadi told me today is that a lot of Israelis believe that that the United States is holding them back, that they would have gone already, but all this about, well, they're not prepared yet, is just sort of a way for them to save face, rather than saying, that the United States is threatening something, that's expensive for Israel if they don't go in. I don't know if that's true. That's just what a lot of Israelis believe is true. So, please stay safe. Okay, that's that's the plan. If you can learn anything from watching my lives and following me as I go around the globe, it's that you can go pretty much anywhere you want. You just have to understand, you just have to know how to do it. You see, even in the worst war zones, there are still people surviving in those war zones almost always. I'm talking about civilians that are staying there. If you go to the front lines in Ukraine, there are still people living in those villages trying to just stay out of the way of the warring parties. Here in Israel, you hear about rockets coming in every day. I get them on my phone, my watch, that the rockets are coming in. As a matter of fact, they just, I don't know, 10 minutes before I started this live, they had some rockets come in the other side of that hill right there, um, off that direction, closer to Kiryat Shimona. They've fired a lot of rockets at Kiryat Shimona tonight. Um, but if a rocket were to land on the top of that building right there back behind me, and I were to duck, it probably wouldn't kill me. It would ring my bell a little bit, but it would be very unlikely to kill me, because I've got a 1.5 foot thick concrete wall right here, I can sit on, and so I can just drop down behind this wall and be covered. There's a big concrete building on the other side of me, so as long as that rocket didn't land right here on this terrace where I'm standing, I'm going to be all right. When I was in Burma, I was doing a stand-up like this on camera and had a mortar round land about 50 yards off to my left, and it made me stop what I was doing and kind of look that way, but it didn't, I didn't catch any shrapnel from it or anything like that. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. I've seen mortar rounds land literally 25, 30 feet from people who were laying on the ground, covering their head. And while, like I say, the explosion will ring your bell, the explosion goes up and out like a flower. And so they actually were not hit. Then again, I've seen people that were about the same distance who did catch shrapnel from something like that. So I just saw a couple questions come in. Let me see if I can go back. Where are you going after Israel? After Israel, I'm going to go back to Panama for a few days, just, I don't know, maybe a week or 10 days. And then I'm going to go to the States, and I've got a couple of things to run around and do real quick. And then I'm going to go back to Armenia, and I got a lot of stuff going in Armenia. I'm going to be in Armenia a lot this year because of all the tours. And I'm trying to figure out how to continue to do these lives and report on, whatever's happening in the world while we're on the tours. That might be pretty difficult to do, but we're going to do our best. I get a lot of encouragement from you guys to keep it up, so I'm trying to keep it up. Okay, I saw another question there. Two good book reads. Okay, they apparently have no morals. question, where are all your friends from Kiryat Shimona, the cowboy guys? Oh, the cowboy guys are not in Kiryat Shimona. They're in uh, Samaria, which is part of the West Bank, and they're still there. They're that's the Israel guys. For those of you who follow them on YouTube, um, those guys at Hayovel are doing great work. They've brought in a bunch of Americans, and they are helping the local farmers. It's springtime, and so they're getting their fields ready to plant, and they're pruning all their fruit trees, and they're helping them get their work done because the war is still on, and a lot of the foreign workers that they had hired to do that work have left and have not come back yet. So Hayovel exists to help the Israelis and to support the Israelis any way they can. They've raised a lot of money to do that, and they're doing a great job. They're still there. That's about probably an hour from where I'm standing south. It's about 30 minutes from here to Tiberias, and then there another, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes past that. Uh, Israel is a small country, so you can get pretty much anywhere. Um, and you know, that's one of the things that I was doing up here is this is such a cool uh, like village. You know, such a cool thing about the Maronite Christians. There's only like 7 to 10,000 Maronite Christians total in all of Israel, and most of them are related to the Maronite Christians in Lebanon. So they all live up here in the north. Like I say, there's a couple thousand of them in this village, and um, it's just fascinating. It's a really interesting subculture, as Michael Yon would call it, an anthro-insula, as an island of people. You find a lot of people islands in Israel. For example, in Samaria, you still have a group of Samaritans, Samaritans like the Good Samaritan out of the Bible. And the Samaritans are a Jewish culture, but it's kind of like a cult of Judaism, or at least other Jews see them as such. And they have the kind of a little different way of worshiping, and they believe that, for example, the actual Temple Mount is on Mount Gerizim, which is the Mount of Blessing, right there where Hayovel is, and so the Samaritans all live on that mountain, and they were terribly persecuted throughout many centuries, and to the point where they were almost killed off. And they got down to like 150 Samaritans left. And they have clawed their way back from 150 people to now almost 1,000 people that are Samaritans in the world. But you can imagine that with 150 people, you don't have a big gene pool to draw from when it comes to breeding stock. And so they've really had a hard time with that. And they were telling us how they have gone to places like Ukraine and Sweden and tried to recruit women, only women, to become Samaritans and come into their culture so that they can marry Samaritan men and sort of diversify their gene pool a little bit. You can imagine how difficult that would be, especially since Samaritans are known for one particular physical trait, and that is very, very large ears. So unless, if you're the kind of woman who just finds big ears really, really sexy, you might want to come check out the Samaritans because they're hiring. I mean, not hiring, they're recruiting. I don't know what you call it, but they need you. And so come make babies with Samaritans because they're trying to survive as a people group. There are also Druze who are here and Druze are a subsect of Islam. I get some of these confused sometimes. There are like 2 Greek Catholic villages in northern Israel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like I say, there are just all these different people islands all over the country, and it's really fascinating. Okay, let's go back. I saw a bunch of questions going by. Let's go back. Somebody asked me if I've seen the interview with Michael Yon on, let's see, blah, blah, blah. Did you see many overseas foreign workers there? Very few right now. I did see some today from, I don't know, maybe India or somewhere. So they must be starting to come back. But most of the ones that were here from the Philippines and Thailand left after the attacks and went home. I don't know how many of them have come back though. Did you see the Sean Ryan show with Michael Yon? Yes, I did, and he apparently mentioned me in that show. Michael and I talk frequently, so yeah, I knew that was happening. Do you see many? Oh, okay, I already got that. Did you hear that Canada has stopped sending artillery to Israel? Yes, I did hear that. That's really unfortunate. Um, keep it real. Question: what happens to the gas and oil off the Gaza coast? Well, Michael and I were just talking about that. He's saying that there's a lot of gas and oil off the Gaza coast, and Israel wants it. Remember, Israel, Gaza is part of Israel, okay, and so the gas and oil that if there are proven reserves off of Gaza coast, I don't know of anyone who is exploiting it, meaning the Israelis are not setting up shop out there and using it. The Gazans surely are not, and nobody else is either. So, um, this is one point where Michael and I disagree. Michael thinks that Israel wants to wipe out Gaza so they can take that oil, and I'm like, Michael, they could take the oil if they wanted to right now. They don't need to wipe out Gaza to do that. What is Iran's nuclear capabilities? Um, well, I read the other day that some people are saying Iran may already have a nuclear weapon. Hey, we got a red alert coming in right now on looks like Mount Hermon, uh, which is that way over there. There's another village, one mountaintop over, and then beyond that is where this thing is now. Did you read up on the Purim? Yes, I have been reading up on the Purim, and I knew it was about the story of Esther. I just didn't quite get how the whole kids dressing up in costumes had anything to do with the book of Esther. I've since learned more about it. Some of you have kindly sent me, some explainers on Purim, and so I get it a little more that basically it's first of all celebration of the saving of the Jews by Esther, and the costumes are meant to sort of symbolize that that things are not always what they seem, and that uh, there might be a deeper meaning to the things that happen in your life. That was one guy said that, which I thought was kind of cool. I kind of doubt that the little kids who are dressing up as witches are, philosophizing that much about it, but whatever. That's cool. And we're going to talk more about that over the weekend. I'm going to do a podcast about it. Just got here. Did you all watch the praying at the Western Wall? Yeah, I did watch some of that. Wasn't that cool? Julie did a great job. Question: do you think the surviving hostages will be returned? Boy, I sure hope so. I hate to be a downer on that. I just you've heard me talk about it most likely if you've watched any of my lives before on this subject. Um, it is, I think, possible for Israel to wipe out Hamas or get their hostages back alive, but not both. They may get lucky and rescue a few of the hostages, but it's unlikely they'll get most of them back alive if they want to completely destroy Hamas. Those two things just it'll be really, really difficult for them to do both, uh, unless they lie to Hamas, agree to a ceasefire, get their hostages back, and then say we had our fingers crossed and go back in and then kill the rest of Hamas. But they're not going to do that either. Do you think Jesus is coming in our lifetime? That's a really good question, Truth. Um, every everybody, all of my grandparents believed that Jesus would come back in their lifetime. And they were all wrong so far. I have one grandmother left who's 96, and that's pretty amazing for a guy that's in his mid 50s. But my other grandmother, she also died in her 90s. She used to tell me all the time when I was a kid that Jesus would come back before she died. She was sure of it. My mother and father, I think, were pretty sure that Jesus would come back before they died. They were wrong. So, as I said on the last live I did today, I don't like making predictions about the future because there are just far too many things that could change tomorrow that we can't plan for. And obviously, we're a day closer today to Jesus coming back than we were yesterday, and we ought to be prepared. I always say that I like to go to the book of Jude, the last book before Revelation, and I come down pretty hard on the message of Jude, which is essentially keep yanking people out of the fire until the end comes. And I want to focus on that. I don't want to get caught up in foolish and stupid arguments about, whether it's going to be today or tomorrow or next week or next year. You could, with all the crazy things happening in the world, you could certainly, stick your head out the door every morning and say, what chapter of Revelation are we in today? But there have been, I'm listening to a book right now about World War II. And there's no doubt that the people who were alive then were pretty sure, with all the things that were happening in World War II, that that was the end. I mean, it's not anywhere near as bad as it was in World War II. People calling me, I probably just lost you. Hang on a minute. Okay. Did I freeze up? Okay. Can you see me? Can you hear me? It looks like we're still good. Somebody was trying to call me. I usually get bumped off when that happens. So I think that I will be as surprised as everyone else when Jesus actually comes. And that's okay. I'm going to try to be caught doing something profitable for the kingdom when that day comes, if it comes in my lifetime. But I'm not going to, just live my life sure that it's going to happen before I die, because we could all die tomorrow. Will you be able to embed with the IDF? Well, we are working on that as one of the reasons why I'm back here. I think it's more likely that I could get in this time than last time. And so you will see. Pray that I get in, please, because I would really like to do that. Are you coming to Burma? No time soon. No, I probably won't be back in Burma anytime soon. I just have too many other things to do. Will you be able, let's see. Question: why only 10 days in Israel? No update on embedding with the IDF. Well, I'm only spending 10 days in Israel because that's all I've got to give it, apparently. I mean, unfortunately, I just have a lot of other things on my plate. And, we've got all these tours that we set up this year. It's going to be a great time touring around Armenia and here in Israel and Jordan. But it takes a lot of preparation. And so we're doing all the groundwork for that. And it's just, if I'm going to do any reporting on anything else, I obviously I've got to cover the immigration story between now and the elections, because that is the number one issue on people's minds, and it is a big deal right now. So there's a lot of other stuff vying for my time, and so I got 10 days, and I gave them 10 days. I haven't been home since the 16th of February. So, it's we're coming up on April now, and it would be really nice to sleep in my own bed for at least a night or two this year. If I okay, if I ever come back to Burma, can I also come to visit Chin State? I'd love to. Burma's an amazing place for sure. Okay, thank you for praying for us. I certainly appreciate that. Let's see, any other questions? Oh, are you going to be here to vote for president? I will probably vote absentee as usual if it's worth doing. I say if it's worth doing because if it's pretty clear that one or the other side is going to win, they don't even count the absentee ballots unless there's like a tie. So there have been times when I've been like, yeah, what's the point? Um, what is the consensus among Israelis you meet regarding replacing Bibi? All of the Israelis I've talked to have said there's a lot of things we don't like about Bibi, but this is not the time to replace him. And it's pretty offensive that the United States would, that Chuck Schumer would be calling for that uh, at a time when we are literally in the midst of a war. It's almost like because doing the middle of a war would it would all but guarantee that they would lose the war, and that's the whole point. That the reason why Schumer was calling for Bibi to be replaced, for elections to be held, is because he knows that Israel will lose the war if they were to do something like that. There have been what I would term agents provocateurs that have been camped outside of Bibi's house calling for his resignation. There have been some small marches and things like that in Tel Aviv, but most of the uh, protests and marches that I've seen in Israel since the war started have been protests about why basically disagreeing with the way the government is prosecuting the war. So they're either not going hard enough against Hamas or they're going too hard against Hamas. This is a divided culture, just like the United States is. And so you've got people on both sides of that fence. You got people blocking the crossings where they're bringing aid into Gaza, and you've got people that are agitating for more aid to be brought into Gaza. On that note, I was talking to some of the CBN reporters who were just down there this morning, and they're telling me that there's so much aid that the IDF has brought to give to the people in Gaza. It's down there on the border between Israel and Gaza. It's inside Gaza in some cases, and it's literally just piling up. That they've got so much of it that they can't even get it distributed, um, and so there is the making the case that there is not enough food for the people in Gaza is false. There is enough food for the people in Gaza. The difficulty is getting it distributed to the people in Gaza. How do you handle reporting that the Palestinians are mainly victims of Hamas? Many participated in 10/7 and celebrate Israeli atrocities. That's right. Um, I mean, no question. The people in Gaza supported Hamas and celebrated what was done. And for that reason, it's pretty hard to make yourself feel bad for what they're getting. I saw a video that was somebody put up on social media yesterday of a Palestinian guy, doing a selfie with his phone and videoing his neighborhood, which is just destroyed. And, just it's like, release the hostages. Release the hostages. Dude, like, if you don't want your neighborhood to be destroyed by the IDF, release the hostages. You guys could be putting so much pressure on Hamas right now that look, Hamas has maybe 10,000 fighters left. If there's actually 2+ million people in Gaza, they could be putting a tremendous amount of pressure on Hamas to release those hostages. And once the hostages are released, the war will end very soon. After that, the war will end. And so release the hostages, dude. Like, it's hard to feel bad for you when your house gets blown up when you're still holding 130 hostages. You don't have a right to those people, right? You don't have a right to their life. So release the hostages. That needs to become a trending hashtag everywhere. Release the hostages. That's all it will take. The Israel guys said there's an abundance of food in Gaza. I mean, I've seen videos coming out of Gaza of people at the marketplace, and there's markets open and there's food for sale. And I mean, look, like I said, in any war zone, there are civilians who are still making it work. There are civilians who are figuring it out, and that's happening in Gaza as well. It's happening in Jenin. It's happening in the West Bank. Uh, there are apparently quite a few Palestinians who are somehow making it out of Gaza and going to Europe. Now, these might be people who made it out of Gaza before 10/7, and they're just now going to Europe because it would take some time to get from Gaza all the way to Europe. I mean, a period of months, most likely. So it's very likely that some of the people going to Europe right now, showing up in Europe that are Palestinians, did not leave Gaza after 10/7. But it may be the case that some of them are actually getting out as well. So that's interesting. It's never exactly what it looks like in the media. Remember, the media exists to report the out of the ordinary. So the ordinary things that are happening in Gaza, people going about their business, kids, playing soccer in the street, moms pushing their babies in a baby carriage, people selling ice cream, whatever. Those things are not going to get reported, most likely. So because they're just normal. They're just normal things. And besides, it doesn't fit the narrative, right? Anything coming out of Gaza, for the most part, is going to go along with the Hamas narrative. And so things like, oh gosh, there are markets open and people can get food. That doesn't help Hamas at all. So that's not going to get out unless it gets smuggled out, right? Here's a question from One Tired Mama. Any new update on Haiti? Well, it's still a mess, still a failed state. I was talking with somebody that called me and said, could you help me get some workers, some employees out of Haiti that are stuck there. They're holed up in their hospital. These are medical workers and they can't get out, and they're running out of food. Can you help them? Can you help them? And we started the ball rolling, and then come to find out they're actually Haitian employees of an American NGO. And if they're Haitian employees, like that, no, I can't get them out. If they're Americans, yes, I could get them out. But Haitians, no, because you'd have to get them out through the Dominican Republic, and Haitians are not going to be allowed into the Dominican Republic right now. The DR is rounding up Haitians and throwing them back across the fence into Haiti, like right now. And they've deployed troops along the border, and so it's very, very difficult to get people out of Haiti. But Americans, I could get out, and I mean, theoretically I could get Haitians out, but it would be very, very expensive because we'd literally have to fly them to, like, I don't know, Jamaica, some other country. And that would entail breaking the law, which I try very hard not to do if I can help it. How are the POWs being held? Long term can't be like a Salvador's prison for terrorists. Are you talking about okay, Todd Lovely asked about he said POWs. I think you might mean the hostages, or are you talking about actual prisoners of war that Israel is holding? As I think about it, you're probably asking about the prisoners of war that Israel is holding. And what they're doing is they are processing these people, interrogating them and at a place in Gaza that's just out of the combat zone. This is the way it works in the military. You capture enemy fighters or suspected enemy fighters. The first thing you have to do is move them out of harm's way. So you got to move them to the rear. You separate them out by whatever categories you come up with, like officers and enlisted, or men and women, or whatever. I mean, you're gonna separate them out, and then you're going to interrogate them separately, try to find out whatever information you can. Apparently, they're getting a lot of really good intel off of these guys that are giving themselves up. And then once you've determined that this guy is a prisoner of war, like he is an enemy combatant and needs to be held, as opposed to somebody that surrendered to you because he was in the way and he didn't want to get shot, and it turns out he's not actually a bad guy or whatever, they just let those guys go. Then they're moving them to prisons in some of them in the West Bank and other places in Israel. Now, I heard that they had built some temporary camps like out in the desert, but I don't think they're keeping people there long term. But that's all I know about that. It's a very good question, though, and I really ought to look into it and see what else I can find. Um, okay, more people will see this if you hit the like button. Yes, they will. Please hit the like button, folks. Let's see, we got 500 people online, 300 and something likes. So a couple hundred of you need to go hit that like button. Please do that. It does really help a lot. What were those books you recommended about short-term mission trips? So When Helping Hurts is the first book you ought to read if you are thinking about going on a short-term mission trip, or somebody you love is, go get the book When Helping Hurts. It will help you learn how to be charitable without harming the people you're trying to help. When Helping Hurts. The other book that I said specifically deals with Haiti and the United Nations, the World Food Program, and other NGOs like that, and the harm that they can cause trying to do the humanitarian side of things, is called Lords of Poverty. And it's a powerful book. Lords of Poverty will make you sick to your stomach about what the World Food Program and UNICEF and the UNHCR and the, UNRWA, we already know that, the terrible, terrible impact that they have had, actually exacerbating the problems that they are meant to address. And it really changed my understanding of how aid ought to be done. My question is, what about pouring the seawaters into Hamas tunnels? I don't know if they're still doing that. They were for a while, and then they stopped, and then they did it a little bit more in the south, but I think they have stopped, and I have not heard any more about that right now. So good question. Let's see. Anything else here? I'm getting for some reason, the comments are coming in big batches. So I'll get nothing for a little bit, and then I'll just get a bunch of comments. So I have to kind of scroll through them. Okay, so we got back to Haiti on that one. Yeah, the whole Hamas tunnel thing, I saw that they just demolished like a 2.5 kilometer tunnel from in Khan Yunis. I swear, I would imagine that all of Gaza will be about 20 feet lower than it was when they started by the time this is over, because they are finding a whole lot of tunnels. Okay, let's see here. Borrowed Jeff. It really helps if you put your questions in all caps, because I'm not wearing my glasses tonight. Has Israel moved into Rafah at all? Well, yes, they have. They have done missions in Rafah, but they have not stayed in Rafah. So they've hit known enemy targets in Rafah. So if they find out that there's a Hamas leader at a certain house, they will hit that house and kill the guy. Or if they see some Hamas fighters that are getting in a car and driving, they'll blow that car up or whatever in Rafah. But any troops that go into Rafah, they do their mission, they come right back out again. That's not what has to happen for them to actually finish this thing. For them to finish this thing, they've got to do a movement to contact, which means putting your troops online and moving them in there and just walking along until somebody starts shooting at you, and then killing the person shooting at you. It's very simple. It sounds crazy, but that's what the military does. You just paint a big target on your chest and you just walk in there. We did this for 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan. You just walk in there, and because everybody's dressed like a civilian, the enemy is hiding among the civilian populace. So the only way to root them out is to walk in there and become a target and dare them to shoot at you. And once they do, then you kill them in the most judicious way possible and move on. It's not a real fun job for a soldier, especially for an infantryman, but that is what they need to do to finish this war. Should Netanyahu address the U.S. Congress? I don't think he should. I think the things that, Netanyahu can get his message across. Netanyahu needs, I just broke up. Just broke up on it. Hello, am I still on? Okay. Yeah, we got a bit of a lag there. Sorry about that. I think Netanyahu does not need to address Congress. He needs to address his own people, and he can send a message to the U.S. Congress by addressing his own people, and the message will get to them. What is the latest on a possible U.S. House on aid to Ukraine? The last I heard, the Biden administration had figured out a way to do an end run around Congress and take some money that had already been appropriated and give it to Ukraine, something like 300 million. On top of that, Europe, the NATO countries have put together an aid package that's over 5 billion euros, which is what, $6.5 billion for Ukraine. So that ought to help them quite a bit. They need it. They need it badly. They're in a bad way in Ukraine. And I would go there and do a bunch of reporting on Ukraine, but apparently nobody wants to hear it. And that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Has U.S. sent weapons aid to Israel yet? Speaker Mike Johnson said Schumer was holding it up. So there was like $2 billion worth of U.S. military materiel, meaning, ammunition mostly, and maybe some weapons, here in Israel, being stored here at the beginning of the war. The Biden administration released some of that to Israel at the beginning. I don't think they have given much more since then. They've held up, I know, Israel's request to purchase some small arms rifles, and the Biden administration has said, we're not going to sell you these rifles until you go after the settlers, the Israeli settlers in Judea and Samaria who are, persecuting Palestinians. I can tell you, in most cases, that is actually not happening. There have been tons of attacks by Palestinians on the Israelis who live in Judea and Samaria and the rest of Israel since October 7th. Hundreds of attacks. Most of them are small, rock throwing, stuff like that. But there have been very, very few attacks where Israeli settlers have said, you know what, we're going to go mess up some Palestinians tonight and just march down into the A zones and started shooting people or something like that. That is not happening. In the cases where an Israeli shoots a Palestinian, it's normally because the Palestinian was in the act of attacking him. Okay? And that has been the case all along. But the Biden administration has it in their heads that they really want it to be true that there are these evil Israeli settlers. And the fact is that the Biden administration just hates the fact that there are Israelis legally living in Judea and Samaria, what they call the West Bank. That's what they hate. And so they want to drive all those people out. But that's morally reprehensible on the part of the Biden administration. And I don't, Israel should just say, fine, we'll get our weapons somewhere else. I guarantee you, Russia, what the Biden administration is doing, get this, is they are pushing Israel to look for another benefactor. And that won't hurt Israel so much as it will further reduce America's clout on the world stage. And, you know, the Biden administration is so feckless, they just can't figure out that virtually everything they do, well, and not just the Biden administration, a lot of hard right Republicans have not learned this lesson either. That if we stop supporting our allies around the globe, whether that's NATO, whether that's Israel, whether it's Ukraine, if we just say, you know what, we're not going to give them any more money, we're not going to help them at all anymore, what that means is that there will be a vacuum of power and somebody will fill that vacuum. So you have to ask yourself, do I want America to have say in the rules of the global game? Do I want America to have power and prestige around the globe? Do I want America to be respected on the world stage? Well, if I do, then that's going to cost money. That's going to be expensive. We've got to be engaged on the world stage. Do we want America's allies to trust us? Do we want America's adversaries to fear us? Well, you know what? If we don't live up to our commitments to NATO, if we don't live up to our commitments to Israel, if we don't live up to our commitments to Ukraine, like we didn't live up to our commitments to the Kurds, like we didn't live up to our commitments to Afghanistan, then America is reduced on the world stage and somebody will fill that gap. And it will probably be China, Iran, or Russia, or maybe Turkey, okay? So if you want China and Russia and Iran setting the rules of the game, then go ahead and push the US Congress to withdraw funding for everybody. I get it. We're out of money. We don't have any money. Everything we spend is going on a Chinese credit card at this point. I get it. We're still collecting $7 trillion a year in taxes, okay? I would love it if the United States government were to reduce that by 2/3 and not be able to spend money on a lot of things that we're spending money on right now. I would love it if people could use their money that they earn themselves rather than giving it to a very, very inefficient federal government. I get it. But when it comes to global geopolitics, if the United States has made commitments to NATO, I mean, this is why I love that, you know, Trump was, he was saying, look, NATO, it's not a matter of United States keeping its commitments. We pay our bill. It's a matter of the rest of you guys not living up to your commitments to spend what you're supposed to spend on NATO. And you expect us to pick up the slack. Well, guess what? The United States, are we back? Okay, I think we're back. Sorry, looks like the internet went out there for a second. Yeah, somebody says, well, Ukraine's not NATO. That's right, Ukraine's not NATO, but we made commitments to Ukraine. We made commitments long before Russia invaded back in 2014. Since 2014, we've had commitments to NATO. Before 2014, when Ukraine gave up their nukes, they only did it because the only reason Ukraine gave up their nukes was because Russia and the United States, Russia agreed not to attack Ukraine and try to take their land, and the United States agreed to support Ukraine if Russia did. Okay? So we made a commitment to Ukraine to protect them from Russia, and that's why they gave up their nukes. And so, look, is a promise a promise? Should our allies trust us? Should our enemies fear us? If we don't live up to our commitments to our allies, then our enemies are emboldened. We look weak on the world stage. And that's an uncomfortable truth. It's an expensive truth. I know we got to spend money to have an influence, to be engaged. We got to spend money. And I'm not saying we need to give money to everybody, which we give money to far too many countries around the world. And we pay for way too many things around the world that don't need to be paid for. You know, like the Organization for Immigration and Migration, for one thing. That's one thing we could defund right away and save a whole bunch of money. Okay, we're back. Sorry. It is a truism that if our enemies don't fear us and our allies don't love us or can't trust us, then America shrinks to insignificance on the world stage. And guys like Peter Zeihan have been making that point all along. He's actually made an entire series called After America, because he believes that America is pulling back and reducing its footprint on the world stage and will be essentially irrelevant in global geopolitics before long on the trajectory that we're on now. And I guess it's up to all of us to decide whether or not that's what we want from America. All right, folks, we've just gone over an hour, so I'm going to go. God bless you all. Please hit that like button and share this with your friends. And please subscribe to the channel. It's amazing. I go look at, there's so many people that I recognize coming up on here, and I know all of you are subscribed, but more than half of the people who watch these things, even on a regular basis, are not subscribed to the podcast on YouTube, and it really helps. So yeah, no, I'm not using satellite internet. I'm using my cellular service, and I guess that's coming and going. It was pretty solid for a while, but it's not doing great. So I got to run. God bless you all. We'll see you later. And I will be reporting on Newsmax later on this afternoon or this evening on your time, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, your time. All right. God bless. Take care.